Hey, Vsauce, Constable here. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you saw a good DC film? Some of you might say Matt Reeves' The Batman. Others might say the Christopher Nolan trilogy. However, if you would say the new Flash film was a good DC film, I've got some bad news for you. Yes, that's right. In today's video, we're going to be complaining about Ezra Miller, The Flash, and also DC films in general. I know there's been a lot of jokes over the last couple of years that DC can't make a good film, but it does stand to reason, and this film is a perfect example of why I don't like the DC universe. I mean, first off, let's start with the elephant in the room. Ezra Miller himself. What does he identify as? Man? Woman? AC-130? So why did Warner Brothers think it was a good idea to hire this guy? You know, the same guy who is well known for assaulting women.
Right? Is that the deal? Whoa, bro.
Who's well known for attacking people in bars and clubs, and who's also well known for kidnapping a mother and child and holding them hostage at his parents' property. He was also the leader of a cult at one point, so sounds like a good guy. You know, it's strange how Warner Brothers keep hiring actors like Ezra Miller, actors like Amber Heard, despite the fact that they have a lot of controversy behind them, and also that a lot of people just don't like them in general. We'll keep on Ezra Miller, and we'll also keep on Amber Heard as actors, but we won't keep on Henry Cavill, even though Henry Cavill hasn't had any real issues with him behind the scenes or on camera for what, like the last 10 years? Another thing which I hate about this film, and most DC films in general, is the fact that the story is just so meh. Like, you can argue the points of whether it was good or bad or not, but it's just so bland and boring to the point where I was falling asleep throughout the film. And this happens throughout most DC and Marvel films nowadays. They're just not that interested. They're not really taking that many risks in the filmmaking side of it. I mean, for God's sake, how many times do I have to see the same story beats play out of multiverse like in Doctor Strange, the multiverse like in Spider-Man No Way Home, the multiverse in the Flash TV series, which was done way better than in this film, I've got to admit. And just the superhero movie genre in general is just, like, I think it's beyond fatigue at this point. Now, it's your opinion if you still like films like these or not. I'm not having a go at you for that. What I'm trying to say is that most superhero films nowadays aren't really super anymore. You see, I think studios and companies are more interested in just playing it safe, trying to get as much money as they can by playing the same, you know, generic formula in a lot of their movies, and also trying to push their own, like, agendas, political views, but we'll try and leave that out of this video. I'm trying my best not to get into any political views. Let's keep it neutral. Let's keep it more looking at the films. Also, another thing to mention about this film, what the hell happened to the CGI? Like, you know it's bad when the director himself tries to excuse the CGI's awfulness by saying that it was intended to look that way, even though the film cost $300 million, or over $300 million, I think, and you ended up with a product that looked like this. Like, what? This is like on par with Justice League Henry Cavill mustache levels of CGI. Now, hold up. I know what you might be thinking. This film's gone through so many redrafts, so many rewritings of the script, that you could argue that the VFX, the special effects crew, you know, didn't really have enough time to put together a coherent and good film, let's just say. But I'd also argue the fact that this film cost $300 million plus. You'd think they'd have enough time and resources to do this kind of thing, but I guess not. Also, for the love of God and everything holy in this world, can we stop with the pointless cameos? You know, not just in this film, but in most DC, Marvel, and just most shows and films in general that are coming out of Hollywood nowadays. Again, there's some cameos that you could argue, like the Michael Keaton cameo that's in this film, that not only is interesting, but it also helps progress the plot along. But most other cameos in this film, like the Christopher Reeve cameo, like the original Supergirl cameo, and other cameos in the film as well, like George Clooney. Oh yeah, George Clooney's Batman's now canon, apparently. You know, they're just kind of pointless. It's just kind of made for the audience to go, I know that! I know him! He was in that film one time that was not amazing, but look! It's George Clooney. Look, it's CGI Christopher Reeve, even though he is unalive at this point. Again, consumerism. Go watch product or buy product. Like product. Don't think about it. Then move on to next product. Like product. Watch product. Buy product. Move on to next product. Don't question it. Anyway, enough about that. Let's go over the main story points of the Flash film. Much better. So, to try and give a fairly brief oversimplification of what happens throughout the story, that the Flash wants to go back in time to save his mother from being unalived. In the process of doing this, he alters the timeline so significantly that there is no Aquaman, there's no Cyborg, there's no Wonder Woman, Superman is now Supergirl for reasons, and the Batman they have is Michael Keaton's older Batman. And in this timeline, General Zod comes to Earth and continues to wipe out the militaries and world powers of the planet. It's up to both Flashes, Batman and Supergirl to stop General Zod. That's kind of like a brief summary of what happened in the film, but I want to touch on some key specific points that just don't really sit right with me. So at the start of the film, the Flash is on his way to his dad's appeal at court because his dad has been convicted, or is trying to be convicted, of his mother's passing, let's just say. In the process, the Flash comes across a crime happening, and it's up to him and Batman and Wonder Woman to help stop it. You've seen them funny memes of the Flash catching babies in microwaves and trying to eat them. Yes, that's in this film. It's dumb, I know. Wonder Woman appears for like 5 seconds with Batman, and then they disappear. They probably jump off that bridge in that scene because they realise what film they were in. The Flash gets inspired to go back in time after he visits his childhood home, and ultimately he does so, even though he discusses it with Batman, the Ben Affleck Batman, and he suggests Barry doesn't do it because he's seen every other time travel film in history, I guess. Something else I want to complain about in this film as well is why the hell do they leave out Professor Zoom, which is essentially, the Flash's main villain? Kind of weird that you bring in General Zod, a villain that appeared in a Superman film that was almost a decade ago, to be your main villain, even though he has like no connections with the Flash. There's no overarching themes with him, the Flash, like the Flash trying to learn something from him. I mean, if Supergirl was the main protagonist of the film, that would be interesting and make more sense as well. I think I heard somewhere as well that Professor Zoom was in a couple of deleted scenes, and that, obviously in the comics he is responsible for the Flash's mother's passing, let's just say. But it's strange why they deleted this from the film. There's also apparently a load of other deleted scenes from this film, but let's not dwell on that too much. This film's over 2 hours long, and I want those 2 hours of my life back, thank you. So both Flashes go and ask for Michael Keaton's Batman's help. He agrees, and they both travel to Russia, I think, to help save Supergirl, who's been kept in a base. And then from there, they come up with a plan to help stop General Zod, who I think has just been, like, game-ending a load of militaries at this point in the desert. But one aspect that I did quite like about this film was the overall message that you can't really change the past, and in doing so can cause a lot of horrible calamities. You've got to focus on the present to help change the future, as that's what's important. There's also some other interesting ideas that, on paper, are, pretty cool, but when they're executed in this film, they're not really that good. Young Flash then goes nuts and becomes old Flash. Just watch the film, you'll understand what I mean when you see it. And essentially kind of becomes evil, but in doing so, he realizes his mistakes and then decides to sacrifice himself, which ultimately fixes the timeline. And in the end post-credit scene, we realize now that George Clooney's Batman is now canon, unfortunately, and that's where the film ends. Overall, I just think that most superhero films nowadays are just uninteresting, they're uninspiring, they're just very bland. It's the same formula over and over and over again, that there's nothing really interesting in a lot of the film. I mean, fair enough if you like the comics and you get enjoyment out of this. I've got, no hatred to you. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not hating you, or I'm not hating your opinions for it. All I'm saying is just that, in my opinion, I'm tired of superhero films, and I just wish that they take some more risks with them instead of just doing the same generic thing over and over again.
Hello, Constable.
Tech guy, what are you doing? I'm trying to make a video with the fans, man.
I've found something. Something you need to see.